Hey, everybody, and welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and this is episode 24, The Return of the Grab Bag.
Dun, dun, dun.
Grab bag again.
But before we get into the grab bag, let me introduce my fabulous co-hosts.
Wait, are you introducing us, or are we introducing ourselves?
We should probably do what we've done the past 24 episodes in which I say, we introduce my fabulous co-hosts, which is your Q.
I'm Diana.
And I'm Jackie.
All right. This is the second recording we've done in 2017 because Jackie has just returned to us from maternity leave.
Hey!
I didn't get a paid maternity leave, though, from ABA Inside Track.
It's not really a paid position.
You forgot to sign up for our long-term
Oops.
disability.
Bummer.
Paperwork did not go through. Sorry.
That's funny.
So, well, actually, this is your second recording because we did
Right.
our preview episode last week. But
We sure did.
this is our first real recording where we actually have to, talk about stuff and sound smart.
I have not been smart, just so everyone knows.
At any point
That's
or just
not true,
recently?
Jackie.
Oh.
No,
You're
in my
so
whole
smart.
life. The last 5 weeks, I've watched so much TV.
It's okay.
I've watched Sex and the City, Rain on Netflix,
I
all
don't know that.
60 episodes.
Is that over like a queen or something?
Yeah,
All
it's about Mary Queen of
Oh,
Scots.
Reign?
Reign.
Okay, that's more interesting.
Mhm.
The Young Pope, I've watched.
I heard that was off
on
the rails
HBO.
crazy.
A lot of TV.
All right.
I'm watching Cedar Cove right now, which is a Hallmark original. It's 3
Nice.
seasons.
I watched The Idiot Abroad.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I watched that on maternity leave. And
Um,
all of the Mindy Project.
Yeah, that's pretty good too.
Oh. I watched The Warriors.
That's just a movie.
I didn't have as much maternity leave as the rest of you.
That's fair. What's wrong with you, America?
That's true. But now we're back and we're scientific again.
Yes.
So no more bad TV. No more Hallmark originals. Cedar Cove.
Hallmark original.
So now we're gonna talk about stuff that's important.
That's right. We are going to talk about articles related to behavior analysis. And for our grab bag, this is our second time doing this, we picked 3 articles that just sounded really cool. We don't specifically try to pick things that aren't related to treatment of children or adults with autism, but usually this is where we pick things that are kind of out in left field or...
Well, I think that makes sense because
Yeah.
when I see an article that I'm interested in that's related to a topic, I say, oh, I should save that for when we do that particular topic.
Right.
So these articles, it's like, oh, I may never encounter another article on this particular topic, so it's perfect for grab bag.
Mm-hmm. For grab bag, we have 3 articles. Each of us picked one, and we put it in a bag. And we're going to pick them out
By grabbing.
by grabbing them from the bag.
I think it'd be funny if every time a behavior analytic journal came out with an issue, we individually printed out each of the articles and then put them in a huge garbage bag. And then we did grab bag. That's actually what we did. We just picked
Just
an article.
randomly. They were like, we've never read this article.
But let's go. That would be pretty funny.
Everyone, wait a minute. Just wait. The recording's going to go just silent for about 30 minutes while we read this article and write some notes. And then we'll come back,
Maybe next time. Maybe grab bag 3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would
grab
not
bag
be
3.
very eco-friendly if we just
No.
had tons of printed articles. Just-
Your house would look like a hoarder's extreme.
Yeah, we just have stacks and stacks of paper. Yeah.
But anyway.
All right, so let's go into the grab bag and get started with our very first article. Here we go. Ready? Can't. Hold on.
This bag.
It's coming. Ah! Okay. Whew. I found it. It was really deep in there. The first article. Text message reminders plus incentives increase adherence to antidiabetic medication in adults with type 2 diabetes by Raiff, Jarvis, and Dallery from the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis 2016. And Diana, that was your article.
It's my
right?
article.
Oh, beautiful.
I won.
I love this topic.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I had some family members that had diabetes, and they never took their medicine, ever. And
That's not good.
no, and they ended up dying.
Ah.
That's a bummer.
But just because they were old. But
Okay.
also, it's so important to take your medicine.
Yeah, I
And
know.
I take a ton of medicine.
Do you
vitamins.
always remember to take it?
Now I do because I have such a strict
Because
schedule.
you're awake 24 hours a
Because
day.
I'm always awake. Yes. But it is very difficult. At one point, I had to take 3 pills 4 times a day. And that
Wow.
was so challenging to remember that I always would forget. And so I could have died, but I didn't die. So I love this
Congrats.
article. Thank you.
Wait, I thought you were a ghost this whole time.
I am. I'm Ghost Jackie.
If you'd only had a behavior analyst to help you,
I know. I should have called
you
one.
wouldn't have forgotten all that medication.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this article for that reason. I think that it is highly relevant to many populations,
Yeah.
not just persons with diabetes, but anyone who needs to take medication on a regular basis.
Right.
And that was why they wrote it. I do think, just to talk about the title for a second, I thought it was interesting that they just went ahead and laid it all out there. They don't talk about effects of text message reminders plus incentives on adherence to medication. They go ahead and tell you in the title that text message reminders plus incentives increase adherence to
I like that.
medication.
They did violate APA formatting, though, because that is definitely more than 12 words.
Is that a rule?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Oh, not bad. Not bad.
Because text message is hyphenated.
Oh, yeah. So
And
that counts
then
as 1.
2 is a numeral, so if you don't count 2, then it's only 13 words.
Well, they were close then.
And 3 of them were prepositions, so
Mm.
it is quite lengthy, though.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I just don't know anything about this, but I thought it was strange that it's called antidiabetic medication. Everyone's just staring at me.
No
Wait,
clue.
I actually don't want you to edit that out because that was pretty amazing. That there was like a super silence
Is it like
to make diabetes less.
But wait,
I
but all
guess.
medicine is to make less.
No.
We don't say that for everything.
No, you might have a medicine to make more
Of
stimulants.
yeah,
Okay, sure, but I don't say I'm going to take anti-headache medication.
you should though. It's
I
more
guess technically,
specific.
Usually
yeah.
I say I need to take some headache medicine.
I just assumed you were taking medicine so you could have a headache. So, you could,
So I can be left alone.
Call out sick and be like, I can't make it to work. I got a headache.
Wow.
I just thought that was weird. Maybe
But-
that's just what they call it, always. It's anti-diabetic medication.
And it's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We don't want
we
diabetes.
don't call it anti-heart medication.
Well,
Anti-heart
maybe we don't.
attack? I don't know.
Maybe we don't, but maybe someone does. Anyway. Ooh.
I don't know, but it's something
Sorry,
to think about
earthquake.
for sure. Probably the most important part of this article. Maybe not.
So tell us
What
about
was
it.
that you said when we started recording, Don? Let's
Yeah.
try to keep this under as
Yep,
close to an
keep it
hour
short.
as possible.
Yep, succinct. That's what I said.
My first time away from my child. I need to get home.
Okay.
So no,
all
she
right.
doesn't die.
Okay. She's gonna be fine. She's not home alone.
I know.
Tell me
That
the
would be a
difference between
problem.
Flammable and inflammable.
Well, Rob. Interesting. I'm glad you asked. Okay, so they wrote this article in order to address difficulties that many people might have with remembering to take their oral medication.
Mm-hmm.
So just to make sure we're clear, the individuals in the study where it was not insulin that they were forgetting to take. It was some type of additional oral medication that they were needing to keep on track. And the tricky part is that it needed to happen multiple times per day. You had to take the right dose, and you also had to take it within a particular window. If you missed the window, that was not good at all. So there are many reasons why you need to be taking your anti-diabetic medication. They listed some of them. They sound very serious, including cardiovascular disease, retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy, and death.
Death.
Yeah.
Probably will lead with that one.
So I know that it has things to do with your sight and not getting blood flow to your body parts.
Sounds horrible all around.
Yeah, there's a lot of really serious problems with having diabetes. So you definitely want to maintain your medication. And there have been previous studies that had added a monetary voucher to taking medication for a variety of different illnesses. And those were really successful. So they wanted to do that here. But the real problem there is being able to know when someone's taking the medication if you're not with them all the time and provide an immediate contingency upon there.
That's true.
Yeah. Because these are adults. I mean, they're just going about their daily lives, and it can be hard to know if they took their meds or not.
Right. You can't just ask them because usually people lie.
Yeah.
Well, they'd probably then say, "Oh, I didn't.
Oh yeah,
know.
I did know.
Oh well,
Yeah.
rats."
Yeah, so you can't really give an immediate reinforcer in the way that you'd want to necessarily.
Yeah, and these were important because it had to be specific times, a specific
Yeah.
regimen of the medicine. So just forgetting, I'll take 2 now, didn't seem like
I
that
don't
was
think
really
that was a
gonna
good
be
idea.
effective or as effective.
Right.
Yeah. So this study is brought to us by technology, because there now is a cool new technology that allows you to be able to track when someone is presumably taking their medication.
Creepy.
Not in a bad way, but just in a cool technology way. So there's this...
You have to purchase this item. It's not like, every pill container secretly tracking your movements.
Yeah, the doctor calls me like, hey, it's 10 a.m.
They send you messages.
I'm outside the house. You're not taking your medicine.
Doctor, don't you have
That's why healthcare expenses going up.
Right.
You gotta pay for these doctors to go stalk people.
Hang out in the bushes.
No, the contraption is called Wise Pill.
Oh.
And you can look it up online. You just type in Wise Pill. They don't even tell you how much it costs online.
That means
that
it's
seems like
cheap.
a bad sign.
Well, no, then they mentioned in the discussion that there's a cheaper one now. I think it's only like $150.
I didn't look that one
something.
up. I should have, but in the article they say this one's like $500. But it's a neat little pill container that can hold up to 60 pills at a time, and it has them, laid out into 5 or 10 different slots. It's called a real-time medication monitoring device, and it sends a signal to like the wireless center, the Wise Pill center, whenever it's opened. It's just the box itself is what it has the notification in it when it opens up and it sends the signal.
Okay.
They were able to track every time that was opened, and it does it automatically as far as I can tell. And if it's not opened within a particular window when it's supposed to be opened, then it, or the app or the server, sends a text message to you to let you know you need to take your
So you don't
medicine.
really know if they're taking their pills. You just know that they've opened up the pill container. They could be throwing it away.
Yeah, but the odds of that...
I know.
I guess there would be some conditions it would be concerning, but I think diabetes would be one where individuals
you're actually
are worried about their health.
Yeah.
That is a good point, that there might be other times where you might be more concerned. People were not taking their medication.
Mental illness,
I
schizophrenia.
would be so they list that as a limitation here, certainly. But I don't think it was that much of a concern. But that is kind of a good point.
Be
There are
hilarious.
other times when you might be really worried about your family member, whether they're actually taking the medicine or not.
And not just like walking by and opening the pill box up and
dumping
then
it in the
shutting
potty.
Yeah.
So there were 3 participants in the study. They range in age from 42 to 51 years old, 2 men and 1 woman, and they all had type 2 diabetes and needed to take this medication. And another factor for inclusion was that they had to have missed at least 1 dose in the past week in order to be considered for inclusion.
And it's good to know, too, that type 2 diabetes is usually adult onset, so they haven't had the exposure or history of taking the medicine since childhood. So type 1 diabetes, you actually have to take medicine usually right from birth or
fairly
early
young,
childhood.
they discovered.
So that would set more of a history of rule governed behavior of taking your medicine. But type 2 diabetes, it's adult onset, so you haven't had that history.
Yeah, they included that information here when they knew it, what age they had the diagnosis, or and I wondered why that was relevant, and now you're telling me why it was relevant.
Yeah, because if you have a disease for 1 year versus 20 years, you're probably going to be more adherence to the medicine.
Yes. So one of them had diabetes since she was 21, so she'd been doing this for 30 years.
Right.
One of the men did not know, and one of them had he couldn't remember.
I don't even know if I have diabetes, really.
I don't know.
I found these pills, and I was I don't take them as regular as I should or shouldn't.
And the other one, I have to look. I think it was about 5 years.
Okay.
So quite a range there.
Yeah.
The participants, once they decided they wanted to be part of the study, they chose the intervals or the window of time in which they would be taking their medication. So it was already kind of tailored individually to what should work for them. And then I liked this as well. They got to choose what the text message said that got sent to them, because it would be fun to personalize that.
Right.
And it might say, "Take your meds, Diana. I can't believe you forgot again."
Right. How did they find these participants? Do you remember?
I
always find it's fascinating.
They were recruited during their routine doctor visits at a local endocrinology clinic.
Okay. That's interesting.
So the authors must have been affiliated in some way with, or were
clinic.
Working together with the clinic.
They're just staking out the clinic and waiting for people outside.
Right.
You take your medicine. Just don't have enough to do. That's
you
quite
take
clear.
your medicine. You take your medicine. you take your medicine.
So the design here was a non-concurrent multiple baseline design across participants. And it was just, given that it was multiple baseline, it was just an A-B for each. So the A condition was a baseline. There was no contingency in place. This lasted from 8 to 12 days. And at the conclusion of baseline, everyone got $10, regardless of how they behaved.
Woo woo, candy. Just kidding. Right,
no.
because it's diabetes.
Yeah. And then the treatment condition, there were two main factors of the treatment. The first was the WISE pill container, which included getting the reminders if you started to miss your window. The text came like halfway through the window. That's how it worked. And there was also a money voucher component too. So that was called an escalating pay schedule with bonus and reset contingencies. I wrote that down because it just sounded so nicely put.
Right.
Right? It's kind of complicated the way that they did it. It was like for each time they took the medication correctly, there was a bump in the pay, like $1. I mean, it wasn't, and then it increased by like 25 cents. It wasn't a lot of money. But then if they missed a dose, then it went back down to the initial value, and they had to do 3 doses in a row in order to get back up to the previous value. They could, if they did everything perfectly, earn like $80 over the course of the treatment condition, which was 21 to 23 days. So it wasn't a lot of money, but it was some money.
I mean, that's actually pretty considerable. I signed up for this fitness app. It worked the same way, that you put money in, and then each time you exercise, they give you money. And when you miss your exercise window, they take all your money away.
Sad.
Yeah, but it worked for a long time until it didn't work, and then I was like out like $80.
Like, forget this.
I want to be non-exerciser. But yeah, so I mean, that's pretty nice.
I mean, it was, extra money, and hopefully they were already motivated to participate in the study since they were in it, but it's a nice bonus too. And that's what it was based on the previous research. So other research had shown that was effective at increasing medication adherence.
Sure.
And then they also got $10 for turning the $500 pill container back in.
I probably should have gone a little bit more for that.
I know. But I guess they got them all back. So.
eBay.
So that was all well and good. They analyzed the results in several different ways. And the overall story is that this worked really well. Everyone did a much better job of adhering to their medication with this treatment package in place than they did without it. They had 2 fairly simple pre-post graphs where they just summarized the mean data for each of the participants in each of the conditions. The first one was percentage of doses taken on time in baseline and treatment, and then the second one was mean minutes outside of the dose window. So how many, if they took their medication late, how many minutes late was it?
All right.
Or early, I suppose, but I don't think that ever happened.
Sure.
Yes. One participant increased greatly from baseline to treatment, given the percentage of doses that were taken on time, from about 20% in baseline to 90% in treatment. And then the other 2 participants had data that looked very similar to one another, where their baseline levels were between 60 and 70%, and they increased up to 80 to 90% with treatment in place.
Still pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, so everyone's treatment data at the end looked fantastic. And then looking at mean minutes outside of the dose window, one participant had not too much of difficulty, honestly, with this. And initially, they only had about 20 minutes outside of the dose window when they did have a late dose. And that decreased to 0. And then for the other 2 participants, they had a high 90 to 100 minutes mean in baseline outside of the dose window. And that decreased with treatment down to 0 and 20 minutes, respectively. So those data look great as well. And they also had another neat way of summarizing their data, which I kind of liked. And it might be hard for me to describe, but they had it broken down by day. And it was basically a horizontal chart in which they colored in each day was a square, and they colored in each of the squares a different shade. So a black square meant that all doses were taken correctly on that day. A gray square meant that at least 1 dose was not taken on time that day, and then a white square meant at least 1 dose was missed that day. So it showed for each of the participants that in baseline, everyone had at least 1 white square, and some of them had several gray squares as well.
Participant 2 sucks.
Well, he or she just... They were taking their medication, they just were not remembering to take it on time.
Yeah.
Right. It's gray
but that can
squares
be
all over
dangerous
the place.
as well, yeah.
I just want to, if you're listening to this and you haven't had a chance to look at the article itself, it's a neat visual. Imagine if you ever did those electrophoresis tests with DNA in biology class in high school, where you have little DNA strands go out in their little lines. Or it looks like maize. like fancy corn with all like the different lines and colors.
It's figure 1.
Anyway, I'm done contributing, everybody. I'll see you next week.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The corn that's all the different colors.
It does look like that.
You hang up. You hang 3 of them up by the husks.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a decorative item for Thanksgiving.
Like maize. When you hear maize, don't you think of like the weird colored corns?
No.
Mm-mm. No. I think maize is just yellow.
What?
I think of the actual maze that you walk through.
Oh.
So there.
But yeah, I totally see what you mean. So it's like all different colors. And initially in baseline, it was kind of speckled because they would sometimes do it and sometimes not, and sometimes just be late. But once treatment was implemented for 2 of the participants, they only had a couple blips. The first participant missed their dose 1 time only ever. They must have been away from their phone that day. And then participant 2 was late 2 times. The rest of the time was perfect. Participant 3 had a harder time with implementation of adherence, even after treatment. They still missed several days.
But they did better than they did in baseline.
Yeah, still better than baseline.
So
yes,
they're working. They're working.
Yeah. So overall, this treatment was quite successful at increasing taking your meds.
Yeah, I
On
would love this
time.
actually.
Right?
Yeah, I may have to call them up.
Yeah.
The Wise Pill
The Wise Pill
Association.
Company.
Well, it can be yours for you have to call them on their website if you want that much info.
But that's the fancy 60 pills. Most people are not taking 60 pills.
That's true. I think you load it up for like the week.
Oh, okay.
I like this. I like the idea of the text reminder. I could probably also just, make my own text reminder on my iPhone.
Yeah, but one of the things they pointed out here, which I thought was a really good point, is that it only sent a text reminder when they were late taking their meds, which they said hopefully decreased the chance that they would habituate to getting the text.
Right, like you do with your alarm every morning. We've talked about it multiple times, how Diana likes to sleep past her alarm for hours.
Yeah, it's like part of the fun.
Yeah. But there's no fun when you're missing your meds.
No, it's totally different. So it's good that the only time you get a text from Wise Pill is if you missed your dose. You're about to miss your dose. So it really is very salient cue to that you need to do something, which I think is kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were several limitations of the study, some of which we have pointed out or that you listeners can probably guess at home. The first is that this was a treatment package. So we're unable to separate out the textual prompts that you got for potentially being late from the money vouchers that everyone received for taking their medicine.
Component analysis.
Yeah,
I think there have been a lot of use of a more antecedent manipulation through text. I know the behavioral group, which isn't really a behavioral group, from the White House, they did a lot with that, with people signing up for the federal Medicare or the federal health programs. And
that will be repealed soon.
Now defunct.
I don't know for sure, but I don't believe they used incentives. I think it was just the text message reminder. There may have been an incentive in there too, but I think there have been other studies where it was just, hey, here's a text message that was considered successful. But again, I don't have the citation. I just sort of vaguely remember hearing about.
But that would have been nice to see here. Could they take it apart and get any more concrete data on how much adding the text piece helped?
Or if you actually needed the $500 pill thing.
Yeah. Or exactly. It's definitely made it easier for them to determine if they were taking their medicine. So that was helpful even to just gather the data.
Right.
It was useful in that sense. And also, we don't know. Medication taking was only measured through the Wise Pill container itself. So opening it was the only way to know whether they were taking the medicine. And as we pointed out before, we don't really know.
It might be neat to do like weekly blood checks. If you could do that.
Yeah, they talked about that too.
Oh, they did? Oh, fun.
Yeah, because this medicine alters some particular aspect of your blood, so they would have been able to determine it through there. So yeah, they did mention that too. And finally, the intervention was brief. So this whole project was only about a month long, so they don't really know any of the long-term effects. And another thing that I was interested in is, I know that it was a multiple baseline across participants, but it wouldn't not have been that difficult for them to go back to baseline and then back to treatment here, which would have just continued to, show experimental control.
Strengthen the assertion that it was actually the treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't know. Maybe after using the text reminders for a while, maybe they got better without having the text reminders.
Or
as well.
worse.
Yeah, well, you would
Or
want to
worse.
think,
Yeah,
Right?
that's a
You
good
know.
point. Yeah. So I would have liked to see that too.
you'd want to think that they learned the behavior and then it just maintained itself forever and ever and didn't need.
That's how behavior
in
works,
place.
Rob. Just forever and ever.
Well,
With
you
no
know.
prompts, ever and ever.
Oh, well, just the less prompts, the better. Certainly, any
true.
incentive system. I think the first question is,
How are you going to fade it?
how are you going to fade it?
Whoa, whoa.
They didn't talk about that at all.
Right.
I don't know any policymaker who hasn't heard of like the success of this incentive for throwing out trash or doing this or that. Taking your medicine. That don't always have we were so excited about the success, but we didn't want to pay people anymore, so we got rid of it, and then values went down. But people should do things because it's good for them, because that works all the time.
Right. Yeah. So they could have done a lot of things.
So terrible article. Boo.
No,
kid,
it
kid.
was a cool article.
It's a
It was a good
It's
article.
a good foundation
being-
Yeah.
article.
But a
Yeah.
little more on the follow-up end.
Yep.
Maybe that's going to be their next study.
Or someone here.
Ooh.
Thesis.
I've got to kill everyone here, so it's only my idea to do a follow up.
That's a weird thing to say.
I'm going to go
Rob.
hang outside the endocrinology department. Hi.
Do you have diabetes?
Do you have diabetes? Do you take your medicine regularly? I'm a hip behavior analyst. I'd like to do research on you.
It's not weird. It's not weird at all.
Hi.
Well,
All right.
Cool.
That's it. I'm out.
great. Thanks, Diana.
Wow, I like
You're
it.
so welcome.
All right, let's reach into the bag and get the next article. Hold on. Oh, that one came out real easy. Because, it's mine. Oh, wow.
Oh, yay.
Do you want to know what I'm going to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
It's a secret. I can't tell you. No, I'll tell you. It's the use of an explicit rule decreases procrastination in university students by Johnson Jr., Perrin, Salo, Deschaine, and Johnson from Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis, 2016.
I might need this. I need a rule. I'm procrastinating with this specific task for like 3 months. Yeah.
One of my
You don't-
colleagues
you don't
has a
have to.
sign above her desk that says, "A procrastinator's work is never done."
Hey!
That's awesome. Well, cool.
I love procrastinating. Can I just say that?
Yeah. I don't.
Well, of course you do.
You
It's-
don't, but I do. I
I'm
love
real
it.
bad at it.
I love it so much. And then when it gets bad enough, then I know that it's time to actually do the thing.
I like doing it
And then I
like
just bust it out and I do it.
I know I can't do that though. I'm not that smart. So we figured this out that Diana can do things like on a whim, and it's like the best work she's ever done when she did it like 15 minutes beforehand. But I have to start working on it like 2 years in advance.
We have really different styles.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have to work on it forever, and like the last 15 minutes, I'm like, phew. Good thing I started that 2 years ago so I could finish it. And Diana's like, I just started it
I'm like,
one
I better
second.
get going on that.
But that's okay. We all have different learning styles.
Yeah.
That's right. And actually, a lot of this article really has to do with what is procrastination, why do we procrastinate, why do specifically university students procrastinate so much. So I'm gonna do a couple definitions. I'm gonna do a little background information. 'Cause,
All right.
Again, the study itself is not super complicated, though. God, were there a lot of statistics. I probably should have read through the statistics part of it before just kind of the abstract and the results and
You're like, oh,
some of the
this'll be
pictures.
fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Procrastination, as defined in this article, is
As defined by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary.
is the avoidance of aversive situations that become more aversive over time. So basically, procrastination is when there's something that you want to avoid because it's aversive, and as time goes on, it becomes more and more and more aversive. So it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
Maybe that's why I do my homework early, because I don't find it aversive.
Well,
Oh, maybe.
hold on to your seat, Jackie. We're
Okay.
gonna get into the why of procrastination here. And for those of you who don't know what a rule is, it's we all know what a rule is, but in terms of behaviorally
Hello,
defining
everyone out
what
there.
a rule is, because I know it's a term I will often drop, rule governed behavior. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I hope no one asked me to define that, because I don't know if
awesome.
I could do it.
Hey, general people out there, do you know what a rule is? I just like that how you said it.
It's a moral country, you know.
Yeah.
So a rule is verbal behavior that specifies a contingency that will probably change the subsequent behavior just like it would if you actually contacted that contingency. So it's the equivalent of instead of actually having the contingency occur, I just say it's going to occur, and your behavior
If you do this,
still changes.
it will
If
occur.
this happens, this will happen, and then without ever contacting the contingency, your behavior changes. So it's a verbal behavior, not an actual behavior. Is that
That
right?
totally makes sense.
Did I get it?
Yeah.
It's a Jack Michael citation, and anytime I see a Jack Michael citation, I'm like, oh god, I can't explain this. It's impossible.
But you did.
No, you got it.
You did a great job.
That's why I wear my seatbelt.
Because of Jack Michael?
No, it was we heard him speak at Babbitt. Scott Geller. Remember him? Remember the talk that he gave?
Yes. Yes.
And then he talked about he had his daughter like show the signs.
Oh, about
in the
wearing
window.
seatbelt, yes.
To wear the seatbelt in the
Right.
car. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I wear my seatbelt because he taught me that rule.
Cool.
Wear your seatbelt.
Great.
All right.
Rule of government behavior.
This article is an extension, sort of looking at a previous article by Perrin et al. In 2011, looking at how to change behavior in university students. Because one of the problems you're going to see is if you have students who don't want to do their work and they procrastinate, there is an association of procrastination and crummier grades. Or worse performance is the term they used in the paper. And this is something I think we all do. We want to allocate our time to behaviors that are not studying, because studying is not exactly fun.
I love studying, but...
Well, it's fun. I mean, it's fun in a way. You know, it's one of those things when I'm doing it, I'm enjoying learning, but at the same time, I've got a lot of other reinforcers in my life that are way more potent.
Maybe that's my problem.
Maybe.
It's awesome. I figured it out.
It's true, Rob. You have a lot of varied reinforcers.
I'm very busy. The issue then becomes with most people, if you looked at our cumulative record of studying behavior,
Right.
you'd see the positive scallop. So you'd sort of see over time there's very little responding in terms of studying behavior. And then as you get closer to the due date, it kind of shoots up. So
True.
that little scallop shape.
Fixed interval.
Yeah, exactly. Like your fixed interval
Exactly.
cumulative record. Now, in terms of talking about rule-governed behavior, Jack Michael also then talks about why do we hate studying so much. And pretty much it's because studying is under a lot of aversive control. We really have the idea of this time until the assignment is due. There's a lot of aversiveness involved in all the behaviors associated with getting probable grades, for procrastinating. And as time goes on, the aversiveness of studying is not quite as high as the aversiveness of failing. You know, we're getting close to the due date. I don't want to study, but at the same time, I also don't want to fail. So eventually you sort of hit that magic point where you have sufficient motivation or sufficient motivating operation for studying behavior. So studying behavior gets evoked. And everything is really just related to the negative reinforcement. So now I'm studying, I feel less terrible about this aversive event of failing. It's sort of sad because you want to think of learning as this positive experience, but in reality, I guess studying is just double aversive situations where eventually one is less aversive than the other, and that's why you study.
Yeah.
Everything in life is maintained by negative reinforcement.
True.
Boo, I'm so sad now.
It's true, though.
But it's true.
Ooh. Well, so the goal of the original Perrin article and then this extension was to have students choose smaller, sooner aversive conditions. So the studying part, it's aversive, but it's not as bad, and you want to get done sooner. And the LL aversive condition, so larger, later. So the actual failure or the bad grades that come from not engaging in your study behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So you want people to choose to engage in that SS aversive condition more than the LL aversive condition.
Makes sense.
Because then you would not be procrastinating because you're doing the studying.
Right.
You're engaging in studying behavior.
But procrastinating is so much fun.
It's hard, but see, that's why there's a study for this, because it's not as easy as saying, come on, everybody, work's great. We'll do a great job and get all A's. Doesn't matter. Plus, I mean, there's also that piece, and you kind of see it in this article. There are plenty of people who wait till the last minute and then just do it, and they don't really care that they procrastinated, and they just kind of get that work done, get an A, and all's all good. It's all good for them.
Right.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think there are advantages to waiting.
No.
Well, because then you're more likely to retain the information, aren't you?
No. Because if you've worked, actually, this is not true.
Jackie wants to learn it.
You
You
have
have
to
to memorize
Right.
it.
You want to learn it.
Fine.
Yeah. So if you see it repeatedly over years, not the
Fair.
last 15 minutes,
Right,
you're
sure.
actually going to learn the material
Okay.
and retain it, not just memorize it. And then not remember it in a year.
Yeah. In the context of this article, they do continually say that procrastination is associated with worse grades. It
Right.
does not cause worse
It's
grades.
correlational, not
Yeah.
causation.
However, just like a lot of teaching, if nobody procrastinated, everyone would get better. The average grades would be better because more people who can't succeed while procrastinating would succeed.
I'm also going to apply this to my life because I just had to buy plane tickets, which I find horribly aversive.
Mhm.
And I do procrastinate that. And if you procrastinate buying plane tickets, you have to pay more.
Mm-hmm.
I just did that too.
So that's a good analogy.
Hey, that's a lot like what this study actually does. You want to change the selection of which aversive condition are you going to engage with first. And you want it to be the small short. And the original kind of study they're extending from looked at if you gave people a bunch of quizzes and said, okay, here's a bunch of quizzes. You should study these for the final exam. Most students sort of put all their responding at the end. So they just did a bunch of the quizzes right before the test. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you change the consequence of you only get more practice quizzes if you pass or if you complete an earlier practice quiz. So not procrastinating. So do the quizzes early rather than all right before the test. They did see responding be more distributed. So people weren't just doing it all at the last minute. They were spreading it out. But that's manipulating the consequence. This article really wants to look at what if I change the antecedent. So instead of having a different consequence, you set up a rule. So it's just the antecedent of if this happens, then that happens. And specifically, they looked at a rule of manipulating, a change in the due date. The rule was if you get all these other little pre-works done, your due date stays the same. You have 15 days to complete these writing assignments. If you fail to do any one of the initial tasks that you would need to do, I'll go over what they are, you have 2 less days. So it was just a rule, though. You don't know if they're going to do it until the teacher's going to follow through until the work's done. So they got a bunch of university students in intro psych class, which is where a lot of research is based, from a small rural university in New England, which coach made me think, I wonder which one it was.
We can look. It's the University of Maine.
It was the University of Maine?
Right, because that's where the authors are from.
Yeah.
I thought it was in there, and then I just didn't remember to look again.
University of Maine, Presque Isle. Sounds beautiful.
It does sound small and rural, then.
What does Presque mean? Next to?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Doesn't
so.
matter.
It's the island next to the island.
Yeah. So all of these students, they all said they'd engage in this research. They probably were required to get their credit for doing experiments.
No, it's probably extra credit.
I seem to remember you have to do an experiment of some kind.
We had a choice. We could do it, or we could do some other extra.
Which is the freaking
No one would ever
worst.
write a
No one
paper.
wants to do that. Yeah.
I'd rather do my Stroop test for the millionth time. They were, the control group and the treatment group. And this was a counterbalanced ABBA design across 2 classes. So if you were in class 1, first you did the control condition, then the treatment condition, and then vice versa for class 2. But the activity was the same. There were 2 writing assignments given, and they were sort of, describe a psychology topic that's important and we should do more in class. And then the other assignment was describe a topic that sucks and we shouldn't do in class anymore. Outdated was their phrasing. They didn't write sucks. I don't know if that's APA style to have that in there. Jackie, you're the...
Let's
Rob.
consult Strunk and White.
There's a whole section on sucks. Oh my God, who knew? It's in the appendix. So each assignment had a due date. It was 15 days, and initially 15 days from the start of the study, or the start of the assignment. And if you were late, you lost 2 points out of a total 20 every day that you were late with your paper.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do that too.
You're using aversives no matter what you do with studying, I guess. So, hey, pack them on there. They had 4 components of each assignment. Regardless of control or treatment, it was the same. They had to come up with, they just choose a topic, find 2 or more research articles that support what they wanted to write about. They had to write an outline and then write a final draft. And those activities were due 3, 6, 9, and 15 days after the initial assignment was given. Now, if you're in the control, they just gave you those rules. They said, here's the style guidelines. Here are the 4 tasks you need to do. And then you need to hand in your paper in 15 days. If you're late, you lose 2 points every day it's late. If you were in the treatment condition, however, everything was the same, except they were told if you don't do one of those first 3 activities, so your outline, you're choosing your topic, you're getting your research together, you lose 2 days off that due date. So now it's 13 days when your final paper is due.
I'm going to do this next semester.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this summer because I have a paper that everyone waits forever to do. I'm totally
You'll have
doing
to see
this.
how it goes.
Yeah,
I'm going to replicate this.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay.
That was really the
Man,
only
that's
difference.
rough. I would hate that.
I know. It seems like the worst.
Mm-hmm. And, well, I mean, as you'll see, it was overall effective.
Tell us.
Not to everybody.
I'm clamoring to know.
I want to tell you, Diana, but before I do, I want to tell everyone at home who wants to apply for continuing education credits for listening to our wonderful little show. what our first secret code word is. So if you are applying for continuing education credits, you will need 2 secret code words interspersed throughout our episode. And when you send those in, that's really kind of the application process to make sure that you are listening, which, of course, we know you're listening to every fun word we say. Diana, what is our first secret code word?
Our first secret code word is bark. B-A-R-K.
Can you use it in a sentence?
Bark.
A tree has some bark.
Bark,
dog
said the tree.
Barked
No,
at the tree bark.
no, because you said barked.
The dog let loose a bark at the tree's bark.
There you go.
Hark, said his owner. I see a lark.
Oh,
The
God.
dog said bark. The end.
Thank you. Should I golf clap for that one? That was pretty little
You should
slam
snap.
poetry you got
Yeah.
there. Back to my study. So we have our design, we have our study. The data they took had to do with mostly the time. You would just get it. They used, I think, Blackboard. So student submitted the assignment. They knew exactly when and what date.
I love that about online submissions.
Yeah,
You
it's
can
true.
like, oh, you turn this in at 2:36 a.m. Nice.
I like the ones where you can turn it off. So like no longer accepting submissions.
I know,
so the
right?
person's just probably panicking and trying to run to the class. And they also just use it. I mean, you can look in the paper. They used a writing rubric to grade how well the students did on the assignments. It was like a Likert scale for a variety of components of writing.
Yeah.
I wish did they give us the rubric?
They give the citation for the rubric, and they tell
okay.
you the I think it was 4 or 5 areas that they
It probably got
that
cut.
they
Yeah,
studied.
got cut.
They didn't. I mean, they did. They do go over the writing score because they did want to see.
Yeah.
The authors did want to see if that changed.
Okay.
I
with
love a good
less
rubric.
procrastination.
Me too.
Yeah.
But they mostly discussed the rubric. It wasn't intense information about it.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of skim through the data they collected
That's
because
okay.
it had a lot of statistics.
Yeah, you just give us an overall impression.
Give us the take
Okay.
home, the golden nugget.
Well, they looked at quarter life measures, and they looked at...
what is a
the
quarter life
area-
measure? If you're gonna say that, you actually have
okay.
to know what it means.
Don't worry about it. It's
It
fine.
was a bunch of 25-year-olds.
Quarter life crises.
A quarter life measure, they look at the proportion of time in an interval for 1/4 of the total number of responses in the same interval to occur. I memorized that. Did not
In
read it from
other
my
words,
notes. They kind of were looking at... I'm going to start this very poorly. They looked at how much time in some kind of interval would you get a fourth of the number of responses to occur.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Send in an errata at aviainsidetrack@gmail.com if I totally botched that.
I don't think you did.
But basically, you get a score from, I believe it's 0 to 1, and if you get like 0.25, you're looking at a response graph on a cumulative record at 45-degree angle. If you get something less than 0.25, you're looking at a negative scallop. So instead of the sort of fixed interval responding you usually
Right.
get, the positive scallop, just flip it around. So a lot of responding to start and less as time goes on.
Okay.
And if it's higher than 0.25, you're getting a positive scallop. So if you have a high value, you are procrastinating more because you're engaging in less
Okay.
responses to start,
Sure.
more responses near the due date.
Okay.
Sure. Would you call the cumulative record a scallop though? Is it more of step? I don't know if they call
Not-
this.
No, they use scallop in the study.
Huh.
It's
Interesting.
well, the step would just be a step. The scallop is that sort of curved
But-
shape. That's what I always think of.
But there is no curves in cumulative records.
You're right.
No, but
It's just-
when you have more response, these are just
yeah, they didn't have a lot of
there's
responses.
not a lot of responding to record here because
Right.
it's just turning in an assignment.
Yeah. So I
But it would still, if you have a lot of responses, then it will appear to.
Yeah, over time
take
it'll take
form.
that shape.
interesting, guys.
Yeah.
I learn
I'm a master
something
of
new every
cumulative
day.
records.
I know you are.
I love them. Got acceleration chart just all over the place. They're in the video, right? Yeah. And they also looked at the area under the curve, which again, they just wanted to have 2 measures because both of them had some pros and cons. But don't worry about it. So let's talk about results
Okay.
of the study. Overall, there was less procrastination in the treatment phase. So when they had that rule in place, there was less procrastination. That wasn't true for all of the subjects. They had a lot of kind of distribution. Basically, what they found was a decrease in that quarter life measure we were talking about from 0.88 to 0.48, closer and closer to that negative scallop, which is what you'd want to see on average. And they found a similar result with the area under the curve. That value increased, and that points to less procrastination overall. The writing quality actually improved for 61% of the participants when they were in the treatment condition versus the control condition. It was 53 to 62% of grades, I believe. No, sorry. I'm explaining that wrong.
How'd they get IOA on that?
Compared to control. The median score was 53% and then 62%. They looked at mostly IOA with the completion of the tasks, and then the explanation of the rule was what they looked at. I'd have to look back to see how they got IOA on the actual scoring, like the Likert scoring. I think the professor was scoring it, though, so it wasn't that the researchers were scoring it. It was whoever was teaching the class was scoring the paper. I believe. Okay. It's a good question. I'm sorry I didn't get that down. When you look at the individual students, and they do graph that, they show the cumulative record for all of the students who were in the classes, or almost all the students in the classes. And what you find were 4 different patterns of responding. So if you're looking at that first figure, it's tons and tons and tons of little graphs. And basically what you have is your x-axis is the number of days, so 0 to 15 when the assignment was due. And then you have 0 to 4 on the y-axis, so that being the 4 steps of the paper, choosing the topic, choosing the articles you're researching, writing an outline, and then writing your final draft is number 4. And you find a pattern. So most of the students followed pattern A. So that's the pattern at the top of the page, or the first couple lines of the page. There's about 16 of the students. And they showed them the strongest treatment effect. So when you compare their control values, so control is the open square, and the treatment is the closed square, the filled-in square, you see that there was a lot less responding early on of study behavior for most of those students in that pattern A. And then by the end, they did start responding a lot more as they got closer to day 15, whereas you find it was much more distributed, or they at least were responding to these early phases a lot quicker to start in the treatment condition. So they weren't procrastinating, they were getting to the work and doing more of the work earlier than the due date. And that was kind of the strongest group. So they did get pretty strong treatment effects there.
Cool.
The B pattern, there were about 8 students who engaged in the B pattern, where it was sort of a mild effect. It wasn't quite as pronounced. You did have some students that actually responded a lot earlier. You had a few that responded before the due date, but it was different than the control in some aspects. So they didn't procrastinate quite as much.
Right.
You also
turned in like one draft. It looks like
they started
one of 4.
They started well, and then they didn't really respond quite as consistently. They sort of then followed that same procrastinating curve, but it was better than in the control, where they just followed a pretty strong procrastination curve. If you were in pattern C, so there were 4 students, I guess they were the goody two shoes of the classroom. They just did all their work, whether it was control or treatment.
They were the Jackies.
They did all their work on time. And then you had pattern D, who were the kids that just they don't care. They procrastinated.
That's
they didn't
Diana.
care. Whatevs.
That's probably me. Well, no, because I would not want to get days off.
That's true.
The due date.
Yeah. Well, there was only 48% of students were late in the treatment condition. So even in the treatment condition, there were people who still hit the contingency of didn't hand in stuff, but almost everybody got the paper. Everyone got it within 15 days. So nobody went over the 15 days, but 48% of the students in the treatment group did not make they were late because they missed day 13, they missed day 14, but they got the paper in by day 15.
Okay.
So they did lose some points. So there definitely was an effect. So if you use the rule about changing the due date, you will see an effect in a lot of the students in which they procrastinate less. They engage in more study behavior, or earlier study behavior, I should say. The 98% in the control, 98% of the early assignment portions were missed overall by students, whereas only 66% of those early assignments were missed in treatment. So more people engaged in the earlier behaviors in treatment. Half of the participants who were in that A pattern of responding improved their writing. So that was nice to see. So the less procrastination, they did improve their writing. Not correlation, not causation. 5 of 8 in the response pattern B improved their writing. 2 of pattern C improved their writing. There weren't as many of them. One of them actually got a perfect score on their writing in the control, so they couldn't get any better.
Right.
So,
yeah, those are the goody two shoes.
Yeah. I'm guessing that, that's kind of a correlation between they don't procrastinate, their writing can't get any better. They're probably the biggest nerds in the class. Surprisingly, though, 4 out of 5 people in pattern D, where they just procrastinated no matter what the condition was, also showed an improvement in their writing. So
Yeah.
it's not just procrastination that's going to have to do with your ability to write. That can have an effect, but plenty of people are going to improve their writing regardless. So
That's good. So the teacher doesn't even need to come to class.
well, there's a lot of research to show that teachers don't really need to come to class. Just put it all online and make it interactive. And
Well, that's depressing.
yep, you're not needed, everybody. Sorry.
I actually am needed.
That's right, you are.
Yeah, that's right, Jagger. You keep telling yourself you're very needed. Well, the main discussion point, really, or the main summary, was that if you manipulate stimuli prior to aversive conditions, you can reduce procrastination. The less procrastination is somewhat associated with an increase in the quality of work. So if you want to decrease procrastination in your students, this treatment won't work for everyone, but you should see a decrease in procrastinating non-study responses or procrastinating responses or avoiding studying. Now, the way they kind of described this was the idea of when is failing and getting bad grades the more aversive to having to study, and when do you have more motivation to study and it evokes your studying behavior. And when they looked at the different patterns, they sort of talked about those pattern C students. The aversive nature of getting a bad grade was so aversive that they immediately had motivation that evoked study behavior because they didn't want to get a bad grade, so they started work right away. Or that's sort of the thought. Whereas pattern D is the opposite. They didn't really didn't really ever get to that point of where it was so aversive.
I would be so annoyed that I had to turn in an outline.
Mm-hmm.
That I would be resentful.
Mm-hmm. So,
but that's just me.
For whatever reason, those pattern D folks, there was nothing that motivated them to study. It didn't evoke studying behavior because it just never got aversive enough. The changes in the consequence. Pattern A and B show kind of that sense of we were talking about the SS and the LL aversive condition. It's like the small, short, long, and large. The rule itself served as probably a motivating operation to specify, hey, guess what? This terrible thing is going to happen, so if you procrastinate or you engage in these other behaviors, so you probably have now the situation is now more aversive than it had been, so it's evoking your study behavior much earlier, or your writing behavior specifically for this study. Now, there were a couple limitations. Certainly, it's nice to say, if you don't procrastinate, you'll get better grades and do better in school, and that's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. Sure, we all have a friend that we have one sitting at this table.
Diana. Yeah,
waits to the last minute. I know my friend, one of my best friends in college. He waited to the last minute and just got everything done. It was really great. It's always frustrating when you meet people like that. It doesn't necessarily work.
It really is.
I know.
They actually mentioned the idea that sometimes procrastination might make you do better work because you have more time to edit. Whereas if you are trying to hit these deadlines, you may just be like, I got the draft done, handing it in, and not give the extra time to go through your writing again or edit anymore. And they also had only one exposure to treatment. They didn't have a lot of data points. So how strong are these results? Measuring procrastination is not an exact science, so perhaps they weren't actually measuring procrastination.
Did they do any social validity?
Nope. No social validity.
I would like to see that. Like, did the students like having the extra deadlines?
I don't think anyone liked it. I feel like they did mention somewhere that students I can't remember if it was this study or another studies like this, didn't like it.
Okay,
They
just check.
didn't like it. And they also didn't look at any reinforcement. This was all about aversives and making aversive situations more aversive.
Negative reinforcement.
But no positive reinforcement.
No.
Sorry. I was not specific.
Whoa.
So, and that kind of gets at the idea of why do we not want to study? Well, there's lots of positive reinforcement, especially in the university world. You've got friends everywhere. No, not many people telling you what to do. There's so many things to do. Studying probably is just serving to end your positive reinforcement. So you're going to allocate all your choice making to everything but studying because it's the funnest until it becomes more aversive to engage in those behaviors than it does to just study because of the bad consequences that will come. So that's kind of sad. Think about why we do things just to avoid other things.
Oh, it's not sad. It's just life.
I know.
It's true.
But don't you want everyone to be like, why study so hard? Because I love studying.
I do love studying, actually.
So other than Jackie, though, I don't think anybody does that.
Yeah, I don't think most people
That's why I
do.
became a professor, so I could just study.
We just keep
No.
going to school.
Yeah, I'd be like, I have homework. And like, you're not in school anymore. I'm like, yeah, I do. I have homework. I love
teaching a
homework.
class is not very different from taking a class.
No, it's not. It's actually more work.
You have to be more prepared.
Yeah,
for class.
You actually have to be prepared. You have to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's funny.
So that was my article. So you want to cut down procrastination? Set a rule.
I like it. I'm gonna try it. I'm
That's
gonna
more
actually replicate this. So students in
Cool.
first year, this summer when you're taking ethics, just know
Watch out.
that this is happening. Cool. Yay. Well, I think I'm left in the grab bag. I don't think we need to go into it.
Well, I'll stick my hand in and sort of there it is. Oh,
there's
wow.
mine.
There's that article.
Yay.
Cool.
And Jackie, your article, Decreasing Bouts of Prolonged Sitting Among Office Workers by Green, Sigurdsson, and Wilder from Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis 2016.
This one's kind of cool too because it's partly funded by the Aubrey Daniels Institute.
Oh, yeah?
Oh.
Yeah, so that's pretty neat.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Wonder how people get money from them.
I don't know.
They send an email, Dear Aubrey Daniels Institute,
Yeah.
give me money. But yeah,
They
so
wait outside the Aubrey Daniels Institute, and then they jump out. And
Yeah.
say, hey there, you want to do some
hey,
research?
there you want to do some research? But this actually is a pretty hot topic. I think we all know that tons of people now. It's like all of the hot topic to get like a Fitbit or a Garmin,
Yep.
and you're wearing it. and you're
Ergonomic desk furniture.
right?
No
So you're
standing desk.
yeah, it's like everywhere. It's in Psychology Today. It's in Time.
Yeah.
Like this is like a hot science topic. Whereas you shouldn't be sitting because if you sit, you'll die.
Hey, Jackie, if you stand, you'll also die.
No.
Eventually.
Yeah, but
I more meant in the grand scheme of things.
in life.
Long term.
But yeah, so like this is like the hot topic. Like all offices are changing now to standing desks and to make sure that their employees are happier. So here,
Yeah, that's cool.
we're looking at how we can make people sit less because sitting more is correlated with increased rates of obesity, health problems, death, even if you have an exercise schedule outside of your daily workday, which I think is fabulous, like kind of crazy. Like I could go and run like 7 miles, but if I sit all day, I'm gonna die sooner, according to the research, which is crazy.
That's sad.
See, my take-home point was as long as I'm just not sitting a lot, I don't need to exercise.
That's awesome. But yeah, so they, like most of us, well, not most of us as behavior analysts because we're clinicians, but if you're not in the behavior analytic field, you're probably sitting at your desk, right? You're sitting at your desk, you're doing a lot of computer work, you're answering phone calls, you're, writing something and you're not moving around. And you're probably sitting for a significant amount of time, which may make you sicker, may decrease your overall health. So we want to get people up and moving. So this is what this study looks to do. And funny enough, there wasn't any other studies looking at how to decrease bouts of sitting in the behavior analytic literature. Yeah. So this is interesting.
Nice.
This is the first one.
It's wide open.
Yeah. So guys, we can actually look at standing desks and moving around.
No way.
Yeah, we could do that. We haven't done it yet. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So here they have 3 office workers who spend the majority of their day, about 85% of their day, sitting at their desks, answering phone calls, writing emails. Sounds really fun.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
It is a ton of time.
What about sitting in meetings? Does that also count?
That counts. Yep,
Okay.
that counts too. And they work at a private university in the southeastern U.S., probably Florida Institute of Technology.
Good guess there.
So that's where they work. And there was 3 women ranging in age from 20 to 59. They did not work together. They did not talk to one another.
Fraternize.
So they did not meet around the bubbler.
That's too bad. I
They don't
probably
have
got them
bubblers
off their
in Florida.
seats.
No, they don't. They have water coolers.
Yeah.
They said that they spent 2 to 5% of their day standing.
Oh, lordy.
But that was their own measure. They didn't actually assess that. That was like at their pre-assessment. Basically, they spent 0 time moving around, which is kind of crazy. But I could see
trying to calculate what that is of an 8-hour workday.
It's
5%.
probably
It's like 15 minutes or
1,
something.
2,
Yeah.
So,
51 minutes. They had varying levels of activity, level 2.
Ooh, okay.
They collected data Monday through Friday, workday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., to try to decrease these bouts of prolonged sitting. They used prolonged sitting as something that was more than 31 minutes.
Okay.
And this was based on previous research that suggests that people should only be sitting 30 minutes at a time and then be doing something.
they didn't have to do anything
How
for
long
too
do you
long,
need to do
though.
something else
No.
I think
for?
it was a
No, they should just stand up.
Yeah.
Like 2 to 5 minutes, like stand up, walk around,
Oh, yeah?
go back, sit.
If you
Yeah.
go to the bathroom if you go to the bathroom every 30
Oh.
minutes, that'd probably be Probably all
You
need.
probably have a problem. But yeah, so you just have to literally like stand up, walk around, come back and sit down.
Wash your hands, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone's always sick. It's
Yeah,
never
that's
gonna
true.
hurt.
I like that. I really like what they did too is they recorded physical activity using a belt that they wore on their hip to actually measure their sedentary levels and their physical
Like a
activity
Fitbit?
levels. No, it's called an Actigraph GT3X.
Oh, it's
Plus
fancier than
unit.
that.
Yeah, it's fancier than a Fitbit.
Okay.
But I think it works the same as a Fitbit-ish. They categorize physical activity versus sedentary, light, vigorous, based on the number of counts recorded over a period of time. So the count was if you were moving or not. So, right? So one bout of prolonged sitting was calculated by measuring the time between 2 periods of physical activity. And then they also used a Watchminder 3 as part of the treatment package.
Why is everything like a 3-letter
No,
letter?
right?
Letter? God, what?
Watchminder 3 to deliver
It's like, I
tactile
blame
levels.
Blink 182.
I do too. I always
started
do.
What about
numbers.
Sum 41?
Them too, actually.
Oh, the 90s.
yeah.
They have a variety of treatment packages to try to get these ladies up. Get these ladies up and moving around
right.
because they're sitting for a long period of time. So they used a concurrent multiple baseline design across participants. They did an ABC design. ABCD design.
Okay. I can't wait to find out.
Or no, I know, because nothing was working.
Oh, God.
It was one of those, you're like, oh, I have to find out something else. Yeah, so they looked at the number of episodes or bouts of prolonged sitting. And when they started the intervention, when they started the tactile prompt, they just got a vibration, kind of like the Fitbit or the Garmin, that just signaled, oh, it's been 30 minutes, you need to get up. And they were given 1 minute from the signal to finish
Until it shocked you.
until you died. To actually finish what they were doing and then get up.
Okay.
That was nice.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, oh, I have
You're
to
like
get up
on the
right
phone.
now.
You're like, I have to go.
Sorry, bye. Yeah. Remember, sedentary activity was 31 minutes or more. So the 30 minutes is fine. And then when you had longer uninterrupted durations of sitting, they scored an additional bout every 30 minutes. So 45 minutes equals 1 bout, but 65 minutes equals 2 bouts.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And
So
then
that helped to account for the varying duration.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then another thing that they noted is if your work day was atypical, maybe you had like a fun day, like a field day, data were not collected on that day.
Oh.
So, because it's an atypical day.
If you had field day at your office job,
Right.
I don't know.
probably like make your own Sunday day, and
I
That's
don't
not
know.
helping
so
matters.
you're standing up the whole time, but you're just making Sundays.
But you're eating
Yeah.
Sundays standing.
That's amazing, actually. I'm going to that university. During baseline, they wore the actigraph to just measure their sedentary behavior. And they just said they needed to wear the device and it measured physical activity, but they didn't give any other information about, the benefits of physical activity, why they had them wear them, or any of that sort of thing. The first treatment was just an information treatment. On the first day of this intervention, they read a script that informed all of the participants about the health risks associated with prolonged sitting, death, obesity, those all cardiovascular problems,
Yep.
all those things. And then they just told them that every 30 minutes they should do some light walking for 2 minutes. Get up, walk around,
Yeah.
go back and sit down.
And it was vastly successful because, of course it was, and that's the end of the study, right?
No. So when they had, I'm going to just tell you the data as we go along. So in baseline, Claudia had around 6 bouts of prolonged sitting.
Per day?
Number of sittings that were longer than 30 minutes. Yeah, 6
Okay.
per day. Which is
Just sad.
3 hours.
3 hours of sitting. Yeah, it's not that bad. I probably sit for longer than that sometimes. Pat had an average of like 8.5 bouts
Okay.
of 30-minute sitting, so Pat was a sitter.
Yeah.
And Gretchen had about 5 bouts.
Okay.
So they're all around the same.
Mhm.
And then when the treatment information came into play, we really didn't see a change from baseline overall. So with Claudia, the mean went down to like 5.7 or so. So she, the trend line, there's no, you can't see it distinguish between the level of the trend. Variability is pretty high in the information condition. So With Claudia, you didn't see anything. Pat, you saw 0 change.
0 change.
Yeah, she
I
was
did
just
not
like,
appreciate you telling her.
Pat
the
was like,
rules.
I know.
I've been working here for 10 years.
Right.
I don't know. Don't tell me what to do.
I can sit here if I want to sit here. Gretchen, you also saw no change. So information, just telling people that sitting
Right.
is bad for
But
you.
keep in mind, like, they have other contingencies at play here. They're keeping them at their desks. Like, that's where you get your work done,
True, yeah, but
you know.
that's true. Yeah, I know. But still, they didn't get up. They were like, I'm going to get my work done. I don't care if I'm
Yeah,
going to
they're
die
like, yeah, I
early."
know, but I
Right,
have
you-
all this stuff to do.
Yeah.
I mean, how
that
often
needs
do
to
you
happen
think
at my
about,
desk.
I've been sitting for so long because you're working on something,
Right.
and then it's done, and you might say, "Wow, I've been doing this a long time."
Right.
But it's been
You
an hour
don't
and a half.
think,
You're not
you don't
thinking
think,
about
oh, every 30 minutes I have to get up.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, information was not successful. So they added this tactile prompt. So the experimenter told the participants that they're going to wear a watch that would vibrate every 30 minutes, and when they felt the vibration, they had 1 minute to get up and do some light walking for 2 minutes. Then they
Or
go back and
else.
sit down. Or else. They know they didn't have an
There
or
was
were
no-
bad results.
If you missed a window, no.
No, there was nothing.
Okay.
There was just like, do it.
or else my study will look terrible. Please, for the love of
and-
God.
Surprisingly, the tactile prompt had very little effect.
Oh, man.
That is surprising.
Yeah, I was actually pretty surprised.
Yeah, I thought that would work.
Because it's one of those things. Well, if I knew it was 30 minutes, I'd always get up. It's easy to get up. I wouldn't even.
I mean, it was mildly effective. We did see overall mean rates decrease slightly for all 3 participants, but again, it was super variable, and like the level really didn't change across all of the data points, so they didn't really feel like the tactile prompts were wildly successful. We did see a slightly decreasing trend, but there's so much overlap in the data. If you look at figure 1 on page 720, if you're reading along with me, you don't really see you're not like, whoa, that really worked, because it didn't. I mean, it did a little bit, but not really. I'm surprised.
I mean, I guess, I set my phone to do a lot of reminders now, and it'll be, tell me this, I don't want to read this email now. Send it back to me at 6 tonight when I'm going to read it and say I'm
Right.
doing it. And then it comes back, and I'm like, ugh, yeah, I guess I got to do that.
Right, so,
Combining procrastination.
right. So then they decided to do a final treatment that consisted of a tactile prompt, because it was, a little bit successful, some feedback, and goal setting.
Oh.
So they have all of this together. So the experimenter delivered feedback and goal setting in person at 8 a.m. on the first day of the experiment to all 3 participants. And the feedback and goal setting consisted of telling the participants the average number of bouts per day during each phase in which they sat for longer than 30 minutes, so letting them know, and then prompting them to set a goal for the next work day.
Cool.
So that's kind of fun. And then they received an email at the end of the day providing them with specific feedback about how they did. And they knew that they read
That sounds punishing.
Yeah, right. I guess that's true. You knew that they read the email because they had the email
The
read.
The read
response.
receipt?
Yeah.
Oh, that's super punishing.
They have a
then.
read receipt. Yeah, they do. I think that's kind of cool. I like to know how I do at the end of the day. So,
But
and
the
it
read
was
receipt always just feels like,
I know, it's
your
very
parents
you don't
filing
trust
on your
me.
shoulder.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So the experimenter wrote them an email. It was very specific about here's how long you sat today. You did or did not meet your goal, basically.
Okay.
No body shaming or anything.
No body
You're
shaming.
looking a little. You probably want to stand up.
Nobody, and it wasn't public, so they weren't and the other 2 participants made their goals, and you did not, so you suck.
Yeah, that would hurt.
Yeah, that hurt. They did not.
Okay.
And so
It's the same person that did the goal setting with them initially?
right?
So there's a personal element there.
Yeah,
So that makes
it's like
it
a
better.
personal trainer a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
That it was more successful. For Claudia, the mean was slightly smaller in the tactile prompt, but you saw less variability overall. For Pat, you actually saw we got around to the 5 bouts. Remember, she was at
That's
the 8
pretty
bouts.
good.
Yeah, so Pat saw a really good increase in physical activity and a decrease in bouts of sitting. And Gretchen was down to around 3, where before she was up at 5. So we did see a decreasing trend across, but we did not see people were still sitting.
Yeah. Well, you
So
still have
you
to do
kinda
your
have
job.
to. You still have to do your job. But one of the nice things that the study did say is that participants did not feel that their work performance decreased because they had to get up. I mean,
That's
2
good.
minutes is 2 minutes. You probably look at Facebook for 2 minutes at your job. So, right? So
Yeah.
just
Just
swap,
get up and go to the bathroom.
swap
Yeah.
it out.
I think what I would like is if I had one of those vibrating wristbands if it went off after 30 minutes and then there was the 1 minute and then it went off again.
Oh, that would be nice.
I think that would be the prompt for me. Like, oh yeah, I almost forgot. I
They
almost
did
got
not do that.
distracted.
Mhm.
They did
I
not-
better get up.
That would
They
be.
do
That'd be
that.
something interesting to do. But how many vibrations? I mean, it's sort of like the snooze button on the alarm clock. How many times is it going to buzz before you finally get up?
For me, just like 20.
So if there were 7 buzzes, okay, fine, I'll get up. But by the research, you wouldn't really see much of a change in the data because it has to be within that period of time.
I mean, just knowing myself, I get really caught up in what I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
So if it just buzzed one time, I think I would say, oh yeah, I'm going to get up. Just need to finish what I'm doing. And then I would
You'd
get
forget.
caught up in it. And I never
Mhm.
Yeah, it would be nice to give you like a reminder, like
Yeah.
now it's time.
Yeah, after the minute.
So that's my recommendation.
Cool. Well, we saw that, overall you saw decreasing in prolonged bouts of sitting, which is pretty nice because this is the first empirical article in behavior analytic literature that shows that we can actually increase physical activity during the workday without decreasing worker productivity.
That's cool.
Yeah, although they did not empirically
Right.
assess that, so
We
they
don't
probably
know.
should. Pat's like, no, I never have to work again.
I just walk laps around the office.
And I'm so healthy, but I might get fired. One thing that you have to note, though, is that there's only 3 participants, and all of them were looking to improve their health. So, they were invested in the study.
yeah.
It would be quite different if you had someone that was like, I don't care about my health. I'm going to eat Cheetos.
I hate this office and I wish
All
I were
day.
dead.
So, I mean, if they're not invested in looking at their health, it's going to be less likely that they're going to follow the feedback, or the feedback's even going to be any sort of reinforcing or
Yeah.
punishing. So
They're going to wear some dorky belt.
right. Yeah. Or a tactile prompt. And we don't know, but they didn't do a component analysis. So just like
Right.
before, they didn't do a component analysis. They could also do a parametric analysis, which would be neat.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the varying intensities of the feedback and
Yeah.
the goal
Yeah.
setting. That would be kind of cool, but they didn't do that.
Yeah.
But they could.
There's no incentive, right?
Nope.
If you reach your goal, you just, yay.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah. The experimenter just sends you that email at the end of the day, and it's like, you did it.
Or was it even, it was like, you reached your goal.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. So it would also be interesting if they had some incentive too. Maybe we could add some cash money in there
Money talks.
with the app.
Yeah.
That app that I was using.
I mean, a lot of, I think they mentioned in the article, a lot of offices have that. This goes into your insurance, or you pay less for insurance if
Right.
you meet these goals. So I think that would be a real easy one to throw in there. Like, you will pay less of a premium if you reach your not sitting on your butt goal for X number of times.
Right. So there we go.
Thanks, Jackie.
That's my article. I'm gonna get up now because I've been.
I know,
sitting.
right?
We haven't.
We
seen
gotta
it.
move.
Uh-oh.
So before we get into dissemination station, I want to make sure that everyone gets their second secret code word, and the second secret code word is Jackie. Do you want to do this one?
Yes. The second secret code word is chewy. CHEWY. My arm is chewy.
Nom, 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 nom,
A
nom.
non-example is Han Solo's best friend is Chewie.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's spelled differently.
It is spelled differently.
I didn't get it because I don't know that.
You don't know that Han Solo and Chewie are
Our
friends?
best friends? I know they're friends. I just know they're best friends.
They're best friends.
Just thought they were casual
Doug.
space acquaintances.
I don't know. I've only seen the movies once, so.
Yeah, they're besties.
The super. Han Solo, Chewbacca owes a life debt to Han Solo. I'm going to stop. No, I
Yeah,
can't.
let's stop.
It's gonna
So
get bad.
we're in dissemination station now. Here we come. Man, I miss doing that.
Oh, it's so good to be back
It
here.
is.
Yeah.
Phew.
I mean, I think the big point, because these are all grab bag articles, there's not necessarily the cohesive point other than I think the one that was brought up at the beginning. These are not articles that have to do with education or children with autism or adults with autism. And though that research is invaluable, it is important for our field that we are doing a lot more that has nothing to do with special education in terms of the research that we're looking at, because that is the stuff that's going to build the field.
Right.
I mean, it's very easy for us to be, we're the autism experts, but I mean, how many behavior analysts? We need more, but at some point you'll hit like a critical mass.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that there are a lot of other areas where behavior analysts could do a lot of really good work.
Yeah.
Like helping people take their medication and helping people learn how to get up out of their seats and maybe even help people stop procrastinating
Well, I guess
on their assignments.
Yeah, I guess the bigger concern too would be that if you only hear about behavior analysis in terms of special education, specifically just with autism, at some point, if you hear, oh, this field's doing a lot of work with this and this and this and this and this, that's the field that gets associated with important change. And, well, why aren't they also associated with autism too? Who needs these behavior analysts? They haven't done anything for us in a while anyway.
Right.
You know, I could see that sort of happening, that we're not associated with enough positive goings on in the world that we just become, oh, that's one group of people, but who cares about them? Let's push them out of the way. These other sciences have done so much more.
Yeah. But these are all important problems that were being addressed here, and with different populations than many of us typically work with, and it was really cool to see all that. So
yeah, I think behavior change is hard. It's always hard. If it were easy, then no one would be overweight. Everyone would be well exercised. We wouldn't have any health care concerns because everyone would be so healthy. You'd either be healthy or dead. Would be the only. Yeah, everyone would be getting all A's and excelling in the workforce and making inventions every day. And that's not the case because it's not easy to do all those things.
Everyone's behavior could use some work.
Mm-hmm. And I also like the idea of these initial studies, but then there's always that piece I worry about. Well, what happens when the study's done, or what happens when that system's done? The researcher leaves, and then you've got, Kathy, the office manager, who decides she's in charge of the tactile prompts in the emails. Do people see this as a positive anymore? They're like, oh God, that busybody's going to tell me to get off my butt. I don't want to. I'm working.
Right. Yeah.
You have to make it inherent. You have to do it individually to yourself.
Yeah. That's a good plan.
But
research-wise, there's a lot more follow-up.
Yeah.
That could be done.
That's
in all of these areas.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
It was way fun.
It's always fun to do grab bag. We'll do another one, episode 36, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll shoot for.
Which seems weird every 12, but it kind of works out since we do an episode every 2 weeks. It's like every 6 months.
It only occurred that way because the first time we thought to do it was episode.
That's right. We're like, what are we going to do?
So we're just going to run with it.
And it would be really easy to be like, let's just do everyone like that.
No.
I know. You gotta switch that up. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone at home, for listening to the show.
Thanks, guys. It was fun to be back, to see you all.
Yes.
And I'm going to be giving my romperoo. Thanks for listening, Kara and Allison, Michael and Mike, Tommy, Gretchen, Pat, Claudia.
Michael and Mike both are listening.
Yeah, you never know. Tammy, Jacob, hi.
Well, if you like the show, please feel free to subscribe to us on iTunes or to leave us a review. We always appreciate any feedback we can get. You can do that through iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, anywhere like that. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You can follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube as well, where we put up our preview episode videos. We've also had a couple other videos. If you've been a listener for a while, you know that Jackie has a cool way to make a little ethics booklet for her students. And while we've described it on the show, I finally just sat down and recorded myself making one.
It was so nice that I didn't have to do it, so I'm really glad you did.
Yeah, so if you want a video of me making a little booklet following Jackie's directions.
It's called Arts and Crafts with Ron.
Yeah, you see my little face in the corner. Oh, it's adorable. So if you don't want to just hear about it, you want to see it, well, that's on the Facebook site and that's on the YouTube page as well.
And remember, we're not copywriting
the
ethics because we're printing it off from the BACV website.
Yeah.
Yes, and I tried to make it small, and I focused on the actual print dialogue windows, so there was no... I don't know why anyone would be like, I watched that YouTube video where I could quickly see the first page of that. So, yes, so that's not our property, but we had to download it to do all the printing and whatnot.
At the BACV.com.
Yes. And it's all in the video. It's all in the video.
Good.
I think that's all of our subject matters. If you're interested in applying for CEs, again, there's a link on the webpage. There's a link in the show notes. And if you ever have any trouble with that, with putting in the code words or the episode number, you can always email us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com.
And for all of you aspiring behavior analysts out there, I sound like bedtime magic right now.
Yeah, man.
For all of you aspiring behavior analysts out there, you should really check out the Masters in ABA program at Regis College in Weston, Massachusetts, where you can, study to be a behavior analyst.
Stuff.
So you can do stuff. Study to be a behavior analyst for 2 or 3 years. You can do a thesis. You can do research with anyone that you want to, really. Geriatrics, young children, kids with autism, college students. We're doing a parking lot study right now to decrease illegal handicap parking.
Ooh.
It's a problem.
It's a super problem. Yeah, especially on our campus.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, so you can do a lot of things that are really applicable to the real world. You can really affect change if you apply to the Masters in ABA program at Regis College. So check us out at regiscollege.edu.
Do everything but procrastinate, because
Right.
Jackie has got
That's
your
right.
number, suckers. So if you want to procrastinate, go away.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing, and then, we're on rolling admission, so you could procrastinate until, August, but I wouldn't recommend it.
No, get in now.
All right, everyone, thanks so much for listening to the show. Jackie and Diana, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, anytime.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be back next week with another preview episode, so you can figure out what we have coming down the pike. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
See ya.